Laws, he gon' make it rain. Gunna, he gon' make it rain. Yeah, got me pull up in the tank. Yeah, moving that bit like a Brinks. Model little bit, yeah, she Cuban. Give me that net, we gon' link. Why side, that be the same. All the way to I'm great.
Hey everybody, we're going to get started in maybe like 2 minutes. We just have a few more people coming in. Thank you for your patience. So just a minute. We're going to have to turn on this really bright light, right? Yeah.
That's going to glare on my head, though.
I think it works better for the live stream we're doing, which we'll talk about later. Well, welcome everybody. Hugh would want this to be a party, right? Yes, yes, hell yes. We really want this to be an upbeat event with more laughter than tears, although I can't guarantee what you'll get from me. Many of us are strangers to each other, but we are all connected through Hugh, and we are forevermore a community. And Hugh, a community was so important to him, and I know that he is up there, out there, smiling from ear to ear that we're all together and in this place that was so special to him. He and many of you spent a lot of time out on this beach around a bonfire, so we're so happy to celebrate him here. I know that many of you moved mountains to be here, and all of you took time out of your hectic schedules to be here, and we are just so grateful. Thank you. In addition to this amazing community, we have many loving, supportive family and friends who live far and wide across the U.S. So we're live streaming this event. And Vince, I wonder maybe if you could just pan the room here and everybody wave. Hello, our loved ones. We've got people all over the place, and we're so grateful that they're joining us. Many of you know that we adopted Hugh, and his birth families are watching as well. And we are so thankful for the precious gift of Hugh that they gave us 22 years ago, and they've been grieving alongside of us during this period of time. Hugh, Dad, Jordan, and I, and Hugh's younger sibling, Jordan, goes by their middle name now. The only reason we are still standing is because of you. After Hugh died, you fed us for weeks when we were too numb with shock and grief to manage the day-to-day. You sat outside with us in our backyard under an old blue tarp in the cold and the rain because it was the early days of the pandemic and we couldn't be together inside. You got up in the wee hours of the morning and baked cookies and hopped in a car and drove from Wenatchee to be on our front doorstep first thing in the morning the day after Hugh died. You lit our walkway with 20 luminarias, one for each of Hugh's light-filled years. You choreographed and performed a beautiful ceremonial dance in our front yard that just brought me to my knees. You started a guys' weekly happy hour outside in the cold, but filled with the warmth of support for Hugh, Dad. You were a life preserver for Jordan. You showed up in mass in our front yard. You brought us flowers and cards and books and tea and candles and all sorts of other things that gave us such comfort. You gave us art and jewelry that memorialized Hugh. You donated money in Hugh's honor to the Meredith Matthews YMCA, a place that was so special to him through youth basketball programs, Y Guides, Pinewood Derby. And on days that were so dark for me, I would get miraculously texts from 10 of you checking in to see how I was doing. And it's like you just knew, you somehow knew that I needed you that day. You showed up, and you kept showing up, and you're still showing up. And we are so thankful for your love and support. This event took a village to put on. There was so many helping hands. Thank you for that. I want to give a special thanks to our advisory committee, Hugh's girlfriend Katie, and dear friends Eric and Jonathan, that while we were planning this, we wanted to touch base with them and make sure we were creating an event that Hugh would love. And we're so thankful for that. Before we get to the fun part of celebrating Hugh, there's something really serious that Hugh, Dad, and I need to say, and we can't let this opportunity pass. Hugh died of a fentanyl poisoning. And in this horrific opioid pandemic going on right now, fentanyl is the biggest driver of these accidental drug overdoses. It's a synthetic opioid that is 100 times more powerful than morphine, 50 times more powerful than heroin. It's highly addictive and really cheap. So drug dealers are making counterfeit pills that look exactly like the prescription opioids, like Percocet and oxycodone. And anybody who buys these pills off the streets is playing Russian roulette. And the dealers are also mixing it in with other street drugs like marijuana, cocaine, heroin, all of it. So we just, please tell your friends, tell your kids about this catastrophic danger out there with street drugs, and don't let them take it even once. We want everyone to be safe. Okay, so change of tone. Quick, what was Hugh's favorite candy? Mike and Ike's. One of Hugh's friends said that he'd never known anybody so associated with one particular food item as Hugh was with Mike and Ike's. And we got this, this big basket of Mike and Ike's. I don't know, maybe we'll put it on the back table. Feel free to take some to eat, to keep, to remember Hugh. So, dear Hugh, a few weeks ago, I ran into one of Hugh's preschool teachers, Miss Carla from St. Mark's Cathedral Preschool. And she'd been so sad to hear about Hugh, and she had a big tear rolling down her eyes. And she said, Hugh was such a beautiful child. He had so much life in him that it just radiated out and filled the room. And I thought, man, she got that right. Hugh was always the energy in the room. He brought the life, he brought the laughs, he was the spark. And, apparently that was true even when he was 3. And we knew that that was his superpower. And then we realized he had another superpower once we saw him through the eyes of his peers. Because after he died, many of you reached out to us to tell us how much Hugh meant to you, and to tell us stories, and to post things on the digital kudo board that you saw rolling across. And there was a common theme in those stories I think is really beautifully illustrated in this one story by a girl who went to elementary school with Hugh. She called me up and asked if I would want to meet at Volunteer Park, and she wanted to tell me some things about Hugh. And I jumped at the chance, but I also hoped they were good things, because there was a lot of stories of Hugh, right? And thankfully, she told me about when they were in first grade together. And she was really struggling socially. The other kids were not nice to her, and boys and girls alike were teasing her. And she spent every lunch hour in the girls' bathroom because she didn't know who to sit with at lunch. She didn't know who to play with at recess. And Hugh picked up on that, and he invited her to sit at his lunch table with him and his friends. And she said, some of your friends tease me. And he said, we don't have to sit by them. We'll sit at our own table. So they did, and other people started to come to them. And then Hugh invited her to play their games at recess, and they happened to be playing war games, and he suggested that she play the war dog, but she was happy to take on that role. And he really stood up for her, and he was so well liked that if he told the other kids to knock off the teasing, they did. And she said this just broke the ice for her, and was so significant because it meant everything to her to be able to come to school every day and know what to do at recess. And she said she saw this all throughout elementary school. Whenever there was a kid that was alone or was being bullied, Hugh always went to be with them and invite them into his fun world. And we've heard these stories of Hugh throughout all of his ages and stages, all the way up through to the young man who were in rehab programs with Hugh the last year of his life, and they've stayed in touch, and they've told us these same things. So Hugh, his social emotional intelligence was so high that he really understood what people need, and he understood what a group needs and what a situation needs. And he knew how to build community, and that was so important to him. And we're so proud of him. And we cherish these stories that you have told us, and we hope you'll tell us more tonight. A little bit later on, we're going to have an open mic where anybody who wants to say something about Hugh, please come up. You know, even the ones where his judgment was dubious, just give us stories that we can all cherish forever. Again, thank you so much for being here. And let's see, I think that's it. So I'm going to turn it over to my darling husband, Hugh, who I know won't be talking nearly as long as I was. So thank you.
Well, I won't be talking as long because Wendy has done the heavy lifting, which is usually what she does in our family. So that's a good thing. Hugh would love this because all of you are here. And of course, he'd prefer it if the music had been louder and a little more profane, probably. And he would have his shirt off because he would have been playing basketball for about an hour at the hoop. I don't know if you noticed there was a hoop right here. That was a pretty good deal. So he would have been sweaty and no shirt on, and the music would be louder. And he'd be upset because we're just doing sparklers later. Any of you, his experience with fireworks usually involved him hanging on to them. And so he would appreciate a more serious brand of fireworks also, too, unfortunately. Let's see. Hugh made people smile. And he was goofy and charming and really sensitive to reading people. And this started early on. I was there throughout his life, and I was there for his first sentence. And he's probably about 2 years old, and I still remember him looking up at me and kind of making a question. You can see he's going to ask a question that had just been wanting to ask, and he couldn't articulate it yet. He says, "Daddy, where hair go?" It's like, wow. So he could cut right through to things like that. Let's see. He also demonstrated independence early on. When Wendy and I would ask him to do something, he'd usually come back he'd ponder, and then he'd go, "I have an idea." And it would usually be something that wasn't what we wanted him to do. And that stuck through with him throughout his life because he saw rules as suggestions a lot of times, and all of you know him for that. So there's no question about that. Let's see. Persistence. He always wanted to stuff a basketball, and all of you who used to shoot basketballs with him knew that he wanted to do that forever. I got to be there for the first time. I think he actually did that. He claimed to be 6'3", and he wasn't. Okay. He also claimed he'd been stuffing a basketball for years, and he hadn't. But in warm-ups before a Hoopaholics game, I think, he actually did stuff a basketball in warm-ups. And the look on his face proved that was the first time he'd ever done it. It was huge. It was very significant. Hugh also taught me a lot of things. And a lot of foundationally, it was like, get out of your comfort zone. Because if you're too comfortable, that's a boring life. So we went to a Trailblazers game for his birthday. We took the train down to Portland. And so we get off, we grabbed our backpacks, and we were starting to go to the hotel, and Hugh walked over to these scooters and said, "We're renting these. We're going to ride these to the hotel." It's like, okay. So he helped me download the app because, of course, I didn't have the app on my phone. And we threw the backpacks on, and then we cruise through Portland. And of course, even though the stickers said no riding on sidewalks, we rode on the sidewalks the entire way. So I'm sorry to the Portland residents. I'm sorry. We were those Washingtonian rule breakers. Hugh was also really spontaneous. And friends were everything to him. And he believed, well, as Wendy said, you're just going to make friends. We're everywhere. You're going to find friends everywhere. And also, if you rode in a car with him, you understood that singing voice, you didn't necessarily have to have talent to want to sing loud. And you know that was about. So I guess let's rejoice this is about that, rejoicing in the years we had with Hugh. And we have a little video we're going to play to kind of give you a taste of those years. Some of you will show up in this video.
Here's our bouncing baby boy. He's going to be 9 months old next week. And he loves his bungee bouncing. Good form, Hugh. You're pointing your toes and everything.
That's tall.
Is that a hole? See, that's a camera.
I'm so reborn. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Ain't no stress on me, Lord. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. I'm so reborn. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Ain't no stress on me, Lord. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward.
We went to the factory, got some roosters food. We went to his house and took a nap. Then he woke up hungry as a cat. Then he went to the field. Then he went with his underwear.
Did you make that song up?
Yeah.
Oh, good one.
Very rarely do you catch me out. Y'all done specially invited guests me out. Y'all been telling jokes that's gonna stress me out. Soon as I walk in, I'm like, let's be out. I was off the chain, I was often drained, I was off the meds, I was called insane. What an awesome thing, engulfed the shame. I want all the rain, I want all the pain, I want all the smoke, I want all the blame. Cardio, audio, let me jog your brain. Caught in the Audi home, we was all detained. All of you Mario, it's all a game.
I'm so reborn. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Ain't no stress on me, Lord. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. I'm so reborn. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Ain't no stress on me, Lord. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. I had my issues. Ain't that much I could do. Peace is something that starts with me. At times wonder my purpose. Easy then to feel worthless, but peace is something that starts with me. Had so much on my mind, I didn't know where to go. Come a long way from the haunting to me. Had me feeling oh so low. Ain't no stopping you, no way. All things ain't like before. Ain't no stopping you, no way. No stress, yes, I'm so blessed and I'm so reborn. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Ain't no stress on me, Lord. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. I'm so reborn. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Ain't no stress on me, Lord. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward.
Hello.
Someone's wrong. Couldn't hold on why so long. Sit here in the storm. Time goes on, but they couldn't find my way out from the storm. Which way do I go? I'm so reborn. Which way do I go? Which way do I go? Which way do I go? Keep moving forward. 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 I'm so reborn. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Ain't no stress on me, Lord. I'm moving forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward.
Let's go! I'm so hyped right now. Fuck yeah, let's go!
Looks like we have to adjust this mic. Hello, my name is Matt. Wendy, Hugh, Jordan, thank you so much for having me here today to help everyone reminisce about Hugh. I also want to thank my Seattle family, Dominic, Omar, and Margaret, for helping me write this. So for those of you who don't know me, I knew Hugh in two ways. I was one of the neighborhood family parents, so saw him from a young age through many of those pictures that you just saw. And I also knew him as a basketball coach. So I know you're thinking that maybe I coached Hugh on one of his many teams, but that's not the case. Hugh was a coach with me, coaching another team. But more on that later. We all knew Hugh in many different ways and in different roles. And these all led to different stories. And anyone who knows Hugh knows that he accumulated stories the way some people rake up leaves. And all these stories add up to who Hugh was as a person. So believe me, I had a lot of stories to choose from, and we all do. One quick story. During the year of COVID, Dominic and I spent a lot of time with Hugh and his family watching Seahawks games. And we started to accumulate sort of traditions. And one of the traditions was that I would give him the business. And so what was giving him the business? Well, first he would come over, he'd ruffle my hair. The second thing he would do is he'd kind of get into that little Hugh crouch that he had. If you've seen him dribble, he gets shorter than me when he dribbles. But he'd get into that Hugh crouch and he'd start like shadow boxing with me. And then he would let me climb on top of him, go under his armpits and start tickling him, all right? And he would laugh like crazy. And this was our tradition. And I ask you, what other person that age would go through such an elaborate ritual just to get tickled. So let me tell you another story. We all know that Hugh was both impulsive and kind. He came to me during his high school years and said, "Hey, can I be a basketball coach with you?" And he needed to fulfill some requirement for school, I think. And Jordan at that time was our official cook, but that's another story. I loved having Hugh help coach the team because he legitimized the concepts that I was trying to introduce. If I talked about playing tough defense, I couldn't play tough defense. If I talked about dunking, well, he could dunk, I couldn't. And he really, really loved basketball. And at his first practice, we always had a scrimmage before practice, he started scrimmaging the other players that were there. He stole every ball, he made every shot, he was just a dominant force. And I kind of pulled him aside and I said, "You know, we're not here to win, Hugh. We're here to teach them to win." So we got a thoughtful look on his face, and after that, he hardly ever scored again in practice. He knew that that wasn't his role. Spirited, but thoughtful. At his first game as a coach, I started yelling at one of our players. And Hugh said, "This is what I'm meant to do." He started yelling at our players. He started yelling at their players. He threw a couple of referees in for good measure. And everyone's kind of looking over at our bench saying, "Who is this crazy person?" So I pulled him aside and I said, "You know, I'm sorry I modeled incorrect behavior, but we only yell encouragement and we only yell at our own players." So he got that thoughtful look in his eye again, and after that, he did it the right way. He even tailored his encouragement to those players based on what their strengths or needs were. So spirited and thoughtful. So Hugh and I coached together for 2 or 3 years. I can't really remember how long it was, but those were good times, good memories. So those are some of my stories of Hugh. And I know everyone here has a bunch of stories of Hugh. So let's celebrate those stories. Let's celebrate his life. And tonight, or anytime, tell a story about Hugh to your friends. Keep those stories alive. I love to think back on these memories. Sometimes I laugh. Sometimes I get a little tear in the eye. But mostly I just chuckle to myself. So, Hugh, we miss you. So, excuse me for a second. Now, Hugh's girlfriend, Katie, would like to say a few words as well. Thank you, Katie.
Hi, everyone. Makes me so happy to see so many of Hugh's loved ones here to celebrate the firecracker that was our boy. Knowing him, he would definitely puff up his chest and feel like the man, knowing that so many of you are here to celebrate him. What can we say? Hugh was quite the popular guy. It's hard to know where to begin and how to put all I want to say into words, but I'll try my best. As many of you know, Hugh and I started dating our senior year of high school, and I think most of our classmates would describe us as being somewhat of an unlikely pairing. At the time, I would have been described as a well-behaved, nice girl who was good at school. Hugh, on the other hand, was known to be the outspoken, goofy class clown who spent more time in the dean's office than class, as Wendy can attest to, given that she was described by Mr. Blanco as being the only parent who immediately recognized his phone number when he called about the latest Hugh shenanigans. Our relationship started off through a simple routine. Hugh would Snapchat me, making sure that I was attending whatever party he was going to that weekend, completely avoid talking to me at said party, and then immediately Snapchat me, asking where I went as soon as I would leave the party. I thought it would never happen, but eventually the pattern was broken, and he actually made the move to start a conversation in person, and the rest was history. After about a month of hanging out and getting to know each other, I wanted to clarify what exactly we were, to which Hugh replied matter-of-factly, "What do you mean? We've been dating." Citing the first time we ever talked as the time he decided I was officially his girlfriend. Premature, maybe, but nonetheless, I was over the moon at his presumption. What followed was a roller coaster of 2 years, packed with the highest of highs and lowest of lows. Everything that had initially attracted me to Hugh, such as his weird sense of humor, his effortless ability to be unapologetically himself without caring what others thought, his charisma, spontaneity, and his funny mannerism of saying whatever came to his mind, even in cases where it might have been best to keep it to himself, was deepened by learning the aspects of him I didn't previously know were there. Hugh was one of the most emotionally intelligent, empathetic people that I have ever known. He could read me like the back of his hand and always knew just what to say and do to make me feel better, whether that was a heart-to-heart, words of encouragement, or one of his silly tweaks. He truly cared about making the quietest person in the room feel heard, included, and special. Being a part of a team was so important to him, given his love for sports, and he showed that in day-to-day life by making sure everyone felt they had an important role to play, no matter the situation. He was also one of the most passionate people I've ever known. His excitement and passion were contagious, and vibrant life and energy exuding from him whenever he would talk about things like music, sports, a funny memory with his friends and family, or the latest random object of his fixation. He once spent a good hour relaying Lil Uzi's entire relationship history and the stories behind all of his songs to me. And while I wasn't a huge fan of Uzi at the time, I grew to be because of his contagious passion. After all, as his friends would know, you simply couldn't be Hugh's girlfriend without being an Uzi fan. He also felt things so incredibly deeply, and we were often emotional wrecks together because I, too, am a deeply sensitive person. There were a few times where we'd just be driving, listening to music, and a song we both loved came on, and without even saying anything, we'd just look at each other and start crying. I hope that doesn't embarrass you, Hugh. This emotional bond was one of the main facets that connected us so tightly, helping us navigate through the good times and the bad times. Hugh, you taught me not to waste any time in making every day an adventure, to not take things so seriously, to never waste a minute pretending to be something I'm not, and that it's okay to share your weird side with the world. Oh, and you also taught me to always insist on holding on to a firework when it explodes, despite your friends warning you not to. That prom is better spent playing the flicking game than dancing with your girlfriend. That rap and certain country songs are the only music that matter. That making weird noises at pedestrians while driving is a great form of entertainment. That it's perfectly acceptable to drag your girlfriend out of bed at 1 a.m. to light off fireworks in a residential area. And that the main food groups are Mike and Ike's, ice cream, twisted tea, and Coors. Hugh, I felt like the luckiest girl in the world on your arm and will never forget the overwhelming feeling of excitement I would get driving down Peach Court knowing I was seconds away from another adventure with you. I couldn't feel more blessed to have you as my first love, my best friend, and the person that I've shared the most impactful moments of my life thus far with. I can't wait to be reunited someday and hear what you've been up to the past year and a half. Thank you for everything, Tweaker.
You're all blessed because I get to read this instead of trying to remember it, because I don't remember things particularly well. Unfortunately, we have a few family members here, which is great, but many of our family couldn't make the trip, so they're streaming. But we asked a few of them to send some messages to us that we could read. And this is from Hugh's, Wendy's mom, Hugh's grandmother, Barbara. And she writes, "As I write this on young Hugh's birthday, I'm feeling the loss of that bright light that went out too soon. There was never a dull moment with him around. He was a free spirit, lively, thoughtful, friendly, and fun. He loved basketball, candy, and dogs." There's definitely some reoccurring themes here. "When his Uncle Terry would come by for Christmas and bring his dog Sonny in the crate, Tall Hugh would be found halfway in the crib to spend the time with her. It was a tragic loss. I miss you, dear Hugh. Love, Gran. This is from Wendy's dad, Hugh's grandfather, Mel. And he wrote a letter to Hugh, so this is the format it takes. Hi, Hugh. I wish I was here in person with you and your many friends and family today on this special remembrance and honoring occasion. Please understand that I'm here emotionally and spiritually. I think of you often in the following ways, only a few that I'll talk about. To begin with, I think frequently of that warm smile that offers your friendship and invites the same from others. It is no wonder that there are so many friends here today to honor you. Another vision that occurs often into you is you with a basketball, or a smaller one in the house. Actually, he dribbled the big one in the house too, but that's another story. The grandfather didn't know that. Basketball dribbled or spun around in your hands or shot toward a basket if one was available. You and I shared a common love for the game, and I was told that you became quite proficient at the sport. Sadly, I only got to see you play one actual game. For all of my remaining days, I shall remember one Sunday afternoon when my Broncos were playing your Seahawks in a preseason game in Seattle, and I was in the dining area of your home enjoying time with you and your family for the most part. And every few minutes, you'd come in from the living room where you had the TV on and tell me that the Seahawks had just scored another touchdown. I never got to even the score with you on that one, but your joking smile made that day. Another occasion that clearly comes to me is the time you and your family went with Nancy and me to the top of Pikes Peak and got to view some of South Park, the mountain near Cripple Creek, which is being denuded in the search for gold, most of Colorado Springs, and the small town of Woodland Park, where Nancy and I live. All of this from over 14,000 feet above sea level. There were many trips to downtown Seattle with the stops at Pike Place Market, usually including a stop at Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory, and then a stroll on over to the Gum Wall. What a combination of sights on that day. I could go on with memories of occasions and situations, but mostly I want to remember experiencing your unbounded energy and the aforementioned smile and ease at interacting with people. Your energy, when around others, always seemed to be more easily directed outwardly toward those others than my own did. And that was always a good example for me to see. I love you, Hugh, and look forward to the time that our spirits get to meet and interact again and be another learning example for me. And then finally, from my sister, Hugh's aunt, my parents both passed away a long time ago, so my sister and brother-in-law really became sort of the grandparents on my side of the family. My sister said that she really felt that the inquisitive nature of Hugh. On a visit to our farm, as a very young boy, he sat on a tractor for the longest time, considering the steering wheel, gadgets, gauges, and levers before his Uncle John took him for a ride. She remembers his adventurousness. He remembers they lived on the Snake River in this beautiful cabin. And remember Hugh jumping on his cousin's paddleboard and launching out into the rapids and currents of the Snake River without a second thought, and had the same approach to boarding the sand dunes down at Pacific City. She also reflected on his patience. When she'd watch Hugh as he patiently shot hoops with his much younger cousins, always teaching them by example and encouraging words. Evidently, he learned from Matt the right approach to that. And how loving he was, just as with his extended family and the look on all of the friends here. Just to have all the friends here, too. He just surrounded himself with friends. And that's what she remembers of Hugh. So, messages from our family.
All right, hey guys. For those that don't know me, my name's Eric Saltvig, and I was one of Hugh's close friends from high school. So the first time I ever met Hugh was when we were on a Lake City football team together in elementary school. But it was really our freshman year of high school at Blanchette when we became close friends. Hugh was always just so easygoing and laid back, and he never took things too seriously, and he could just always make me laugh at a moment's notice, no matter what mood I was in. If there was ever a moment I was mad at him, I couldn't stay mad at him for more than about 5 minutes, because he knew exactly what to do to put a smile on my face again. We would hang out all the time, and there was one summer in 2016 that I practically lived at his house. And thankfully, Wendy and Hugh Sr. were some of the most hospitable people I've ever met, so they never got fed up with me being there 24/7. Hugh was the glue of our friend group, and one of his superpowers was the way that he could bring people together. He would walk into a room and immediately make everybody feel comfortable. It didn't matter if they were complete strangers or not. For me, he was someone I could open up to without any judgment, and he knew my deepest thoughts and he was always there for me no matter what. When I moved to Boulder, Colorado for college, we stayed in touch, but not as much as I would have liked. So when I found out that Hugh passed away, I was crushed. I sincerely wish I could have been there more for him towards the final months of his life. But Hugh may no longer be on this earth anymore, but one thing that will never go away are the memories that we made together. Those will always be with me forever. I'll never forget the good times we shared, all the bus rides home from high school, seeing my very first concert with him, going to Jonathan's cabin with Katie and her friends, and playing basketball in his driveway until the neighbors told us to stop. The long car rides just listening to the music that we both loved, and the deep conversations we have late at night. And I could honestly go on and on, but to Wendy and Hugh Sr., thank you so much for raising one of the best people I've ever known in my life and for always welcoming me into your home. And to Hugh, my brother for life, thank you for showing me what true friendship and loyalty should look like in my life. I will never forget you.
Thank you, Eric. Would anybody else like to say a few words? Oh, Dominic?
Hey, I'm Dominic. I was Hugh's friend when I was little, and his entire life I was friends with him. I think I met him Y Guides maybe. I don't know. He's one of like the kids in the neighborhood. And I didn't actually have a speech, but a couple hours ago I found out I could, and so I wrote a couple things down. And Dad's speech, I read Dad's speech, and my dad's Matt over there. And it reminded me, he talked about Hugh pretending a lot, and I know Hugh was one of the most imaginative people I knew, and I know imagination was a lot of my childhood, and he definitely contributed to that. One thing we would do is we would go to Stevens. I'm sure a lot of people know, have a lot of memories from Stevens, and we would go to Stevens and we would pretend to be NBA players. Usually he'd be KD because he was way taller than me. He let me know that all the time too, that he had some inches on me. But we'd pretend to be NBA teams. A lot of time we'd be OKC. He'd be KD, I would be Russell Westbrook. And we would act out entire games. We would, and not even entire games, we'd act out entire series. So it'd be like the Western Conference Finals. And we would act out the entire game 1 through 7. And we had to get it just right. We couldn't let it like be a boring, like a blowout or anything. It had to be like the last shot. He had to sink the game winner. And we would have plays, and if like it messed up or something, or if my pass wasn't good enough or something, because he was always taking the shots, if it wasn't good enough, we would like restart it. So we kept restart these games, and we stayed at Stevens for like hours, and we had a lot of, we had a whole world in our head of NBA basketball. So yeah, I really miss, especially the last year of Hugh's life. We watched a lot of UFC, a lot of basketball, and I think that was a great avenue just to like, that was some of my favorite memories of Hugh, wrestling him, and I'm really, makes me really sad to think about the things that we promise each other that we can't do anymore, but I'm really glad that we got to do the things that we did do. So, yeah, I miss wrestling with him. I know I talked to my brother, and he told me not to say this, but I'm sorry, Omar. And I know, Jordan, you were part of this too, not to like put you under the bus. But when we were little, we wrestled a lot. I think you know where I'm going with this. And I wasn't the biggest kid when I was little. And Jordan and a lot of it with Hugh they would pin me down. They were really good. They were better at me than wrestling. And they would wedgie me. And they and they actually wedged me so hard that there was multiple occasions where we heard the rip in my underwear. So I'm sorry if this is not the occasion to share that, but as I got bigger, that didn't happen. He didn't get me at the end. When he wrestled the last couple of years, it didn't happen. So my masculinity is intact. But yeah, so I value these memories. I really value Hugh. I really encourage us to keep telling these stories. I know I have dinner a lot with Hugh and Wendy, and a lot of people I know were friends with Hugh. So I know we need to keep talking about him, keep these stories alive, because they're some of the most valuable of my life so far. Yeah, he really made my life better. He really taught me a lot. And I always looked at him like an older sibling, sometimes like a younger sibling, sometimes I think he looked up to me, sometimes I definitely looked up to him. So thank you, Hugh, for that. And also thank you to Hugh and Wendy for making this event possible. I really appreciate your generosity towards our family. You guys have always been some of the nicest parents I've ever known, some of the nicest people I've ever known, so thank you.
Would anyone else like to say a few words? No more wedgie stories? Oh, there's a wedgie volunteer.
Hey guys, my name's Jimmy Rosenberger. I was a high school friend of Hugh's. Eric said that he was the glue of our friend group. That is definitely a fact. Hugh was the man. I think we can all agree. I was thinking of stories, and it all came up like, yeah, Hugh's the man. Hugh's the man. Like, where's the story where, like, Hugh's not the fucking man? Sorry. I found one. There's one story that I remember specifically, and it was me, Hugh, and Finn's ex-girlfriend, and we were going to an abandoned mansion in Edmonds. It burned down a couple years ago, but you could actually go there. But you had to go through the woods. So we went through the woods, and it was getting dark, and we thought, like, we'll make it. It's only like a mile. Hugh, sorry, Finn, not you. Hugh started marking where we were going in case we got lost with, like, sticks, and I thought it was a pretty good idea. Like, we might have gotten lost. Didn't work out once it got dark, though. So we're sitting here on a ridge, no idea where we are, and Hugh is sitting there with his head in his hands. And I'm like, bro, like, it's fine. We're calling Colin. Colin actually was the hero of the day. He came and saved us from this forest. He brought his car out there. But I'm sitting there with Hugh, and he's just like, dude, I thought the stick plan would work. And I mean, good idea, but, you know. Hugh was a great friend. He was that dude. I miss him every day, and I could tell stories about him for hours because he was just a bunch of stories. He was a good-ass guy, and I'm really happy we're all here together.
Any other volunteers?
Hi, I am Colin, who you just heard about, rescued some kids in the forest. I feel like looking back, my car was used for some pretty risky things in the past. No, Hugh, I met him in high school football as well, and I remember the first conversation we had, he was basically saying, hey, you're coming to my house, and you can't really say no because that's what's gonna happen. And I told him, I said, I'm kind of nervous. I've never been on the bus. I don't even know what my mom's gonna say, really. And he was like, oh, well, ask for forgiveness, not permission. And he taught me very important lessons in my life on how to just be myself truly. And if anybody really has a problem with you being yourself, it's kind of their problem. Just love yourself to the fullest, and you will have amazing people that will just surround you automatically. It's like Hugh taught me how to create a magnet in my body for amazing people. I think 3 out of 4 times that I showed up somewhere with Hugh, somebody would know him, and it just blew my absolute mind how happy they were to see him. I mean, everybody was like, oh my God, it's the guardian angel, and he really was. I mean, I loved that kid more than anything, and I remember one night we were just sitting in my car doing mischievous things, and he told me, he said, you know, I don't consider you guys friends. And I was like, okay, this can go a couple different ways. And he said, I consider you guys brothers. Like, you guys aren't my friends, you guys are my brothers. This is a family that we have created and that we have now. And it truly was. I mean, I'm closer with him and always will be than I am with some of my actual family. And that is a fact. He is just that dude, like Jimmy said. And just happy to be here, really, and see everybody together again. It's very nice. I know Hugh would absolutely be loving this, but wanting to get out of here so he could be with the boys. I know that. I remember the last time I talked to him, he FaceTimed me, and I was on the way home from, I think I was at work or something, and he was basically telling, at this time I was in EMT school, and he called me and he told me that he wanted to get into firefighter training. And I was just so proud of him, and I thought that was so awesome, but I remember I had to hang up because I actually almost crashed my car. So I just always feel like I had that one last conversation with him, but not too long ago, I just had a little sign that told me he was watching over me, and it felt so good, and it felt like a fresh breath of air, because I think, and we can all agree, that when Hugh passed, we definitely lost a big part of our actual selves that will never be repaired, but it can always be remembered, and he will be. And yeah, I could tell stories all night, but that would go nowhere. So I would just like to say thank you again for inviting me, Hugh's family. It's great to see you guys, and it's great to see everybody here.
Would anybody else like to share a remembrance, story, skullduggery? Wendy?
I know that you dudes have a lot of stories, but well, I was thinking of one more I wanted to take when I was looking at the video again. I found a video on Hugh's phone of a crazy party. It was one of the things there. And I thought, oh, wow, that looks like a good party. And then I was like, hey, wait a minute, that's our basement. What the hell? And I didn't find out about this until later. I'd had, well, there was one night that Hugh Dad was out of town at a family memorial service, and I had to work late at the Seattle Art Museum at an event. And our neighbor across the street texted us and said, you know, there's a lot of cars at your house, and none of them seem to be yours. I just thought I'd let you know. And I said, you know, there was a few people over there. And so I thought, well, that's great. I purposely didn't tell the kids when we were going to be gone, you know, but anyway, I got home and everything seemed to be in order, except for the smell of vomit. And yes, Jordan, being the responsible person, had Googled how do you clean up vomit and found that baking soda works really well. But so I thought it was just a little gathering. But after I saw that video and I asked Katie about it, asked Jordan about it, sounds like it was a rager at our house that had started at just like a smaller gathering. And Hugh said, hey, my parents are gone. Why don't you guys come over? And through social media, how that is, everybody came. And I guess our house was stuffed to the gills. People were in the laundry room, they're everywhere. And like at midnight, Hugh says, okay, everybody's got to get out of the house because my mom's coming home. And somehow miraculously had it all cleaned up by the time I got home. But and I hear later that was kind of an epic party that everybody talked about at school. But there are many stories about Hugh, and we cherish so much everything that you guys have shared tonight, and we will relive that over and over again. I watched a talk by a therapist who has worked for decades in hospice programs with hundreds of people who are at the end of their lives. And he said that the thing that surprised him so much is that of all the things you could worry about at the end of your life, the thing that most people are afraid of is being forgotten by the people they leave behind. And that really touched me. And so I hope you will never forget Hugh. I hope you will continue to tell these stories. I hope you'll talk about him, talk to him, continue to get together. He would love that so much, and to keep his memory alive. And in that vein, we have some very dear friends who approached us and said that they wanted to start a charitable fund in Hugh's name for our family to be able to continue to do good works in Hugh's name. And it's the Hugh Saffel Charitable Fund. And if you're interested in donating, there's information on the back of the program. We would love it if any of you have any ideas of organizations that you think Hugh would just so get behind. We're going to start doing our research. He was so passionate about basketball. He would want everybody to be able to play. So we're thinking, maybe inner city basketball camps or something. But if you have any ideas, please let us know. We really appreciate that. A few of you have also asked if there will be a presence at any cemetery where you can go and visit Hugh and think about Hugh, and we are in the process of selecting what's called a garden niche for Hugh's urn at the Lakeview Cemetery by Volunteer Park up on Capitol Hill, and when we have that in place, and there'll be an engraving, we can certainly let people know. So now the talking has ended, woohoo, and what we want to do is, grab our coats and, dear God, Hugh loved fireworks, and that's come up several times. And we've got sparklers that we want to light out on the beach. It's not an organized thing, like, we're not doing something all at one time. Just spell something out in the air, twirl around. There is a moat of water right around here. We're going to have to go out that door and just around a tiny bulkhead to do that. And then afterwards, there's a really yummy taco bar waiting for us through that door. There are 2 long buffet lines, and you can serve yourself from either side of the tables. We have things for gluten-free eaters. There's corn tortillas, and for vegans and vegetarians, there's rice and beans with everything else. And what we really hope is that you'll stay and linger and talk and reconnect and, move these chairs around however you want. We really hope you'll have a meal and share more stories and spend some more time with us. Thank you so much for being here. And for anybody who's brave, let's go outside.
A plastic bag drifting through the wind, wanting to start again. Do you ever feel so paper thin, like a house of cards, one blow from caving in? Do you ever feel already buried deep, 6 feet under screens, but no one seems to hear a thing? Do chance for you, 'cause there's a spark in you. You